Let's get nerdy, folks. Welcome, one and all, to Monday Night Nerd. Hope you guys had a great long weekend. It has been beautiful here, a little warm, but beautiful, and I hope you guys had a great long weekend. I sure did. I had a nice, relaxing long weekend. But we're here on Monday Night Nerd, and we're here to talk about the greatest video game company currently in the market. PlayStation. I love Nintendo. I can't stand Xbox, but we're going to talk all PlayStation today because I'm a PlayStation fanboy. I'm a trophy hunter, and we're going to talk about 5 generations of PlayStation. I got some stories to talk about. I'm going to talk about how I got into PlayStation. I'm going to talk about how I got 2 PlayStation 4s for almost just $100, a little over $100 each. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what my top 5 games are for each generation of system and a whole lot more. But first, we're going to jump into the news because that's how we always start the show. Let's talk about a little bit of news. Let's talk about X-Men 97. If you're not a big Marvel fan, you'll know you won't know X-Men 97, the same type of series as was popular in 97, is coming back. Marvel announced it a few years ago, if not last year, and they're talking about bringing it back, and everyone got really excited. But because of delays when it comes to everything else, it's delayed again. It's delayed till late. It was supposed to be late 2023. It's now early 2024. It happens with the writer's strike and everything. I completely understand them wanting to wait, maybe want to work on some animation. I completely get why they want to take some extra time. I'm okay with it. If they were one season in and the hype was there, that's another thing. But because it's still not out yet, I'm okay waiting as long as it's going to be a good product. Is it going to be as good as the original 1997 show? I don't think so, because anytime they've ever tried to do something like this in almost any version, it's never worked as well. Animaniacs is a great example. I love the new Animaniacs, but it's not as good as the original because I don't have the same mindset as I did back then, and I don't have the nostalgia goggles that I do for that original series. But I'm still excited. It's going to be a good series, I think. Let's talk about PlayStation, but not fully PlayStation. Let's talk about gaming. GTA 6. Everyone's talking about GTA 6. I'm seeing memes. I'm seeing reports. I'm seeing thoughts, speculation, rumors, everything. I'm starting to get worried. I'm a big GTA guy. I jumped in with most people on GTA 3. Vice City was good. San Andreas 4, 5, etc. Now we're waiting for 6, and it's been 5-6 years waiting for this thing. I'm starting to get Chinese democracy vibes about this thing. Guns N' Roses, famously, Chinese Democracy is an album that they were waiting years to put out. Everyone waited forever, and it never lived up to the hype. It never lived up to the hype, and I'm worried that GTA is about to do the same thing. We've had so many rumors and speculations about what it's going to be like, when it's going to come around, and I just feel like I'm waiting, and the game is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger in my head, and it's just, I don't think it's going to live up to it. Which is frustrating because I think they've got so many great people working on the series. That's such a great number 5 was a great game, and now they're bringing it to number 6, and everyone's saying it's going to be Vice City and high def. But I don't know. I'm getting worried. There's a little too many rumors and a little too much thinking about what this could be that I think they might be in a little bit of trouble. Personal thought, because I'm seeing a ton of reports of, is it going to be, you're going to have a female character and you're going to jump around all these different characters, and the map is going to be 50 times the size it was in 5, and etc. And I'm just like, I think we might be getting a little ahead of ourselves. Maybe. We'll see. But hopefully we get it soon, because it's been a while since we've gotten a GTA 5 game. GTA 5 has now been on 3 different platforms. PlayStation 3, 4, and 5 now. I think we need something new. But they're still making money on GTA Online, so I guess if you got a cash cow like that, just keep milking that thing until you can get every penny you can out of fans. Let's jump into a little bit of sad news. I don't want to leave this to the end. We all know that Mr. Jimmy Buffett, Mr. Margaritaville, passed away recently. And today, unfortunately, we also lost Steve Harwell, the lead singer of and founding member of the band Smash Mouth. He has had, I believe, liver failure for the past little while due to excessive drinking and etc. partying, and unfortunately he passed away today at, I think he was only like 50 something. And Jimmy Buffett's, he's been, I think he was 80 something when he passed away. So sad to see both of them go. Lived great careers. I don't think Steve Harwell back in the day when Smash Mouth had their hit, I don't think he really thought it would still live on 20, 30 years later, but good for him. I think Shrek really helped. And yeah, it's sad to see him go. But, thank you for the memories, folks, as we used to say on the show when I used to do my tributes. Thank you for the memories, guys. You were well missed. Steve was 56, and Jimmy was 70. Yeah, Steve was only 56, but he lived a hard life. He lived a very party rock star life. So sad to see them both go. This next little bit of news, I'm going to try and keep short because I know not everybody on this channel that watches this is a wrestling fan, but I do want to talk about it because it is one of my favorite wrestlers. CM Punk was fired from AEW due to an incident that happened at the recent pay-per-view in Wembley. Now, again, I have to keep this short. I need to keep this not ranty, but I have some very strong opinions on everything that's happened with this situation. For those who don't know, CM Punk, very famous wrestler from WWE, is now with AEW, or was with AEW. And AEW had a big show in Wembley and sold 81,000. They've now hold the record for the biggest wrestling event ever. And there was a moment in one of the matches with a fellow wrestler, Jack Perry, and Jack Perry tapped on the windshield of a car that was by ringside or by the entranceway and looked into the camera and said, "Real glass, cry me a river." Well, what that meant was there was supposedly an incident a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, where he wanted to use real glass in the match, and a bunch of people said no, including CM Punk. And I guess this was a knock on CM Punk saying, "Look, I'm using real glass." And when they got to the back, CM Punk was there, and he grabbed Jack Perry by the throat and told him, "Quit being a little piece of crap." And the owner of the company, Tony Khan, was there, and he saw it, and they both got suspended, and now CM Punk is fired. Now, here's my thoughts. Do I feel like everybody involved is to blame? Yes, 100%, even CM Punk. CM Punk is a hothead. Needs to learn to keep his temper down. Jack Perry needs to stop poking bears. And Tony Khan should have seen something like this happening a while back and done something to stop it. There's been a lot of rumors and reports of what had happened before when it comes to how CM Punk got to the arena and the condition he was in, not alcohol, but just frustration with other things that happened. I'm not going to talk about it because nobody knows if it's true or not. But yeah, I'm frustrated that CM Punk is no longer going to be on TV. I think AEW is in trouble. I don't think they're going to close, but I think their ratings are going to drop. They kind of based an entire TV show around Punk, and I think that's going to take a hit. But overall, it's a bummer. I think it's a bummer for everybody involved, especially if you're a fan, because I think there's a lot of fans that tune in to see him, and now that they're not going to because he's not there. But it's Tony Khan's company, and it's his choice, and there's some things he said in the press release that are just laughable. But again, I don't want to get into it because I could get into a very long rant that will take an entire episode. Maybe we'll talk about it in the future when I have maybe I'll do a specific CM Punk episode where I talk about my opinions on him and this whole situation. That was a complete joke. Last thing before we jump into the PlayStation stuff, I want to give a shout out. And I want to give a shout out to a man who has helped me so many times, and that is my photographer, good guy, Tyrone Islington Photography. Find him on social media. An amazing guy, an amazing photographer, and did an amazing job on my recent Dash Rendar photo shoot that we did at Fan Expo. He's done my Luigi photo shoot. He did my Ghost Rider photo shoot. A great great photographer. He's not paying me to say it. This is just me seeing his work and saying this guy deserves more work. I put in a submission for the Cosplay Alliance magazine about a year ago. I want to say it was almost October, and I needed photos quickly. And I messaged him and I said, "Can we do a photo shoot and can you edit them in about a week?" And he said, "Yeah." And he came all the way from Toronto, did a photo shoot, and within 4 days, I think he had at least 5 or 6 photos edited for me. So straight up guy. And I said, "You're my photographer from now on," because he does incredible work. And his Ghost Rider shoot was great. His Dash Rendar shoot was great. So overall, I want to give him a shout out because I don't think I'll be going with any other photographer because he just knocks it out of the park every single time. So Tyrone, if you see this, thanks, buddy. I will be messaging you at some point for another photo shoot because you kick butt at what you do. That's it for the news. A little bit of news today. Let's jump into the sponsors. Then we're going to jump into the main event, and we're going to talk about PlayStation. It is bloody hot in here. I don't know why, but it is so warm in here. If you guys give me 1 second, I'm just going to send somebody a text, and you could probably guess who that is. I'm going to send the sponsor a text and say, "Can you hit the AC? Because I am sweating." Talk amongst yourselves. All right, there we go. All right, we're back. Sponsors, as always, my beautiful, loving wife, who will hopefully turn on the AC because I greatly appreciate it, hun. My wife is always my sponsor. She does so much for me. She supports me. She kicks butt. Like, I honestly wouldn't be the person I am without her. She is, as I always say, she is my rock. I am her river. And I know it's corny, but you know what? It works for us. Hun, I love you. Thank you very much for everything. And you will always be the sponsor. Okay. PlayStation. Let's talk about PlayStation. I was not a PlayStation fan originally. I know. I'm a fanboy now, but I was not originally a PlayStation fan. We're going to go generation by generation. We're going to go through JS. How's it going, buddy? I'm doing good. I hope you're doing good. I hope you had a great long weekend. Let's go generation by generation. PlayStation 1. I did not have a PlayStation 1. I had an N64. So the way I was introduced to the great company of PlayStation, please send me free stuff, was a good buddy of mine, Jason. It was a guy that worked with my dad, and he had a PlayStation, and I would go over to his house, and he had a PlayStation. I had an N64, and he would always show me all these PlayStation games. And at that point, I didn't understand the difference because I grew up with Nintendo. I grew up with a NES, a Super NES, N64. Why jump? N64 was great. Super Nintendo was great. But there was something different about PlayStation. It felt more mature. And there's something, and it's so small. It's so small, but it's such an impact. When you start up that PlayStation 1 and that startup sound hits, that was a game changer for me. That was a moment when I went, the N64 doesn't have a startup sound. The certain games did, but this PlayStation has that opening sound. Even now, even at 35, it's still the best. PlayStation, Sony, if you're watching, if you could put a feature on the PS5 where I can customize the startup sound, that would be very nice, because I would put that PS1 sound on there. Nothing has beat it. One has come close, and we'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, it was the last choice. It was the last moment where I went, do I want to stick with Nintendo, or do I want to jump to PlayStation? Because, like I said, N64 was great. There's so many good games for N64. I could do an N64 episode because I love those games so much. But I could tell I was changing. And the graphical upgrade to the PlayStation and having things on a disc and getting full motion video. That was different. And it felt like you can get more out of a game on a PlayStation disc than an N64 cartridge. I felt like the N64 had that limitation, even at that age. And I realized later on, it did. So while I had the N64, I was watching this PlayStation thing. And every time I go over to my buddy Jason's, I would go, you're swinging me. You're swinging me to the dark side. And it wasn't until I got my PlayStation 2 that I really got to go back and enjoy the PlayStation 1 games, because PlayStation 2 had backwards compatibility, like systems should. So, top 5 games for PlayStation 1. Number 1's Crash Bandicoot. Like, hands down, the mascot of the system. Crash Bandicoot, number 1. Hands down. 2 is good. 1 is better. Resident Evil 2. This is where I mentioned the full motion video. I have Resident Evil 2 on the N64. I had it when I had my N64, and I loved it. But when I played it for PlayStation, it was better. It was... The full motion video was better. It felt like it controlled better. The graphics were a little better. So Resident Evil number 2, my number 2 choice. Number 3, the one that I think everyone would put on their list for many reasons, not including the kick-ass soundtrack, Tony Hawk 2. Like, that's a guarantee. Tony Hawk 2, for anybody in my generation, has got to be on their top 5 list, because the gameplay is amazing. You can throw it in now and play it, and it's got a killer soundtrack. I mean, Bring the Noise, Anthrax, and Public Enemy, like, I don't see a problem with that. Number 4, because I'm a huge Mortal Kombat fan, Mortal Kombat Trilogy. Again, had it for N64, but PlayStation had so much better because of one reason. And that was when Jason and I would play, we would get to the end, and after you beat the game, you could put in a code. You could put in a combat code. It was those things. And we knew the code that we could put it on, and we could then watch all of the fatalities in one video. You couldn't do that on the N64. You could only do it on PlayStation. So we would put it in, play a quick round of it, beat the game, and then we would go, okay, put in the code, and then sit there for 5 minutes and watch all the fatalities, all the animalities, all the babalities, all in one video. That put it on my list for sure. JS, Bring the Noise is actually a song. It is on the soundtrack for Judgment Night. I'm a huge Anthrax fan, so that was part of it. That was a band that I got through video games. Like, I love Metallica, but I didn't really understand what the big four were: Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, Anthrax. It wasn't until I realized that they were Bring the Noise was them. And there's another game which I'm going to talk about, which I'm not going to talk about in PS2, but I will talk about it right now. ATV Off-Road Fury. There's an Anthrax song on that too. And that got me going like, okay, this is a cool band. And then I became an Anthrax fan. And then I even saw Anthrax live, and they were amazing live. But anyways, back to the point. So that's 4. So we got Crash, Rez 2, Tony Hawk 2, MK Trilogy. Last, and this is the left field one, where anybody who's a fan of this franchise is going to go, you chose that one? Street Fighter EX2 Alpha Plus. The 3D Street Fighter game. Only because the rental store near me had it on deep discount because nobody played it. So I bought it, and it was the only Street Fighter game I owned, and I played it to death. I know it's not the best Street Fighter game. I know. But I love it. Alex saying Tomb Raider. I didn't play. That was the thing. Because I didn't have the console when all these games were big, I didn't have Tomb Raider. I didn't get into Tomb Raider until like PS2. I knew of it, but I never played it. I know there's games like Metal Gear. Never played it. Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Never played it. There are tons of great games, but these are the games that I had. And I've played Tomb Raider since, and it's a good game, but it's not on my top. PlayStation 2. This is where it kicked in, where I was like, okay, this is my system. Jason, again, my buddy, had a PlayStation 2. Now, Jason's thing is Jason could never decide what system he wanted. I knew him, and I don't really talk to him as much anymore, but when I was really good friends with him, it seemed like every other week I'd talk to him, he would change systems. He would have a PlayStation, then have an Xbox. Then have a PlayStation, then have an Xbox. When he had PlayStation 1, he wanted an N64. When he had an N64, he just jumped. So I was hanging out with him, and he had his PlayStation 2, because the PlayStation 2 had just came out, the big fat original one. And he said, Mike, I'm thinking of getting rid of this. I think I want an Xbox. I said, oh, okay, cool. Do you want to buy it? Oh, okay. What comes with it? He goes, I'm going to give you the system. I'm going to give you 2 controllers. I'm going to give you 10 games. How much? $500. That's a good price. At that point, that was a good price. Were the games, top tier games? No. Like the one was Pool, one was Super Bust a Move, one was ATV Off-Road Fury, stuff like that. It wasn't Crazy Taxi was one of them. That's a good game. But it wasn't anything like, AAA PlayStation games. But I bought it. And that was the moment where I went, okay, I'm a PlayStation 2 fan. Because I could not, because at this point, I did not have I didn't have money of my own, so I had to use my mom's money. So it was one of those, when you buy a console, that's your console. You're not going to buy another console. So I had that moment where I was like, do I stick with the PlayStation 2, which is a great deal, or do I go with GameCube? I've stuck with Nintendo all these years. Wouldn't I stay? Nope. I jumped to PlayStation at that point. That was my first PlayStation console. Man, did I make a good choice. That system is the king. I think the PlayStation 2 out of all of them is the king. Hands down, no debate. The lineup of games for that system is like the Mount Rushmore of the system. PlayStation 3 has a lot, but PlayStation 2, that was the... So again, another great startup sound. The second, it's not as good as the first, not as good as PlayStation 1, but that PlayStation 2 startup sound, amazing. Having the towers in the background of the startup being your memory card save files, smart. The little clock in the corner, which if you were a kid, you had no idea what it was until you realized it was a clock later on when someone told you, that was cool. I think this was the last console that I owned that I just did all-nighters all the time. Loved it. Just did all-nighters for every game. Didn't care. Would skip school. I remember skipping school to pick up Grand Theft Auto Vice City. I remember skipping school to pick up, what was another one? Def Jam Fight for New York. So many games. And this was also when I started to get my own money so I could buy my own games. And there were some bad games that I bought. I will fully admit. I bought, and I'm kicking myself, I sold it. I bought Playboy Mansion, which was the Sims Playboy edition, basically. And you were Hugh Hefner, and you were taking care of the mansion, and you could openly have sex all over the mansion. And I bought it because I thought it was hilarious, and I sold it. And it is stupid expensive now. It is one of the games where I regret getting rid of it because it was pretty funny. I never played it, but it was a pretty fun game. But that system had so many good games. Top 5 games, God of War number 1. JS in chat, Vice City was amazing. That's my number 2. Vice City, God of War, 2 of the best games I've ever played. God of War was the last time I did an all-nighter. I went all night and I went to school the next day and I pretty much passed out on my desk. My buddy Caleb let me borrow his copy and I put it on at like 8 o'clock thinking, I'll play an hour of it. I was up till 8 in the morning just running through it because it was such a good game. Vice City, same thing. Talk about a killer soundtrack. That game, and the thing with that game is that you had multiple radio stations you could flip to. All of them were good. When they put out that box set of all the different radio stations and all the songs from each one, everyone was good. V-Rock is obviously the best because you had amazing bands like Twisted Sister on it and Autograph Turn Up the Radio and stuff like that, but everyone was good. Flash FM was good. Even the commercials were good on that game. Def Jam Fight for New York. Hard to argue, one of the best wrestling games out there, and it's not a WWE game. Def Jam Fight for New York is still a game I will throw in once a year on my PlayStation 2, and I'll run through a little bit of it. And having so many famous rappers, having people like Henry Rollins in the game, and Carmen Electra, and Snoop Dogg, and Ludacris, and all these rappers that are and it's such a polished game too, because they took the engine from the best N64 games, No Mercy and WrestleMania 2000, and made it into a PlayStation 2 game. That's all they had to do, and they did an amazing job at it. Number 4, this is an oddball, but I love it. NBA Street 2. NBA Street Volume 2 is such a good basketball game. I'm not a big basketball game fan. Anytime NBA 2K comes out on PlayStation Plus or 3, I'll always download it and I'll give it a shot. But the arcadey style of the NBA Street series is such a good series. And it's so fun to just hop in, pick your favorite players. You can create your own team, or you can get your legends, or you can pick your favorite NBA team, like I said, and you can just run through the competition. It's such a fun game. Lastly, because I'm a big Mortal Kombat fan, Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks is such a departure from the series, but in the best way. To the point that people are dying for Ed Boon to re-release it in an HD version on current systems. And I think it would sell out like gangbusters. The problem is Ed Boon is now owned by Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers, being, the guys that do the DC movies, have a problem with not giving fans what they want. So I doubt we'll ever see it. But I have a copy of it, and I love running through it. It's not your typical Mortal Kombat game, but it's still a great game. But like I said, PlayStation 2 is probably the highlight of the generations of PlayStation games, and it's something that I will always cherish. I was so upset when my PS2 died. That was a moment where I had that, I will remember you. Like, it was sad when that thing died. But I picked up a Slim, and the Slim seems to be working still, so I'm happy. But that fat console was such a nice looking console. But these things don't last like they used to. Then it was time for PS3. PS3 was the first console I purchased with my own money. So this meant I got to pick when I wanted to buy it and what I wanted to buy with it. And this was the moment where I went, all right, I'm buying the system and I'm buying GTA first, because GTA 4 had come out and I had seen what a difference that was from San Andreas to 4 is a jump. And I was like, this is my time. And I bought it and I went, the GTA 4 is okay. It's not my favorite, but it was okay. Graphically, it was fine. The big thing with the PS3 was I was at a buddy of mine, and he had got a PS3. His parents had bought him a PS3 not long after it came out. And as we all know, this was the era of Guitar Hero, which I love, which it goes across the board. I was thinking of putting Guitar Hero on this, but I couldn't pick which one I loved more, because I love all the Guitar Hero games, because, again, soundtrack means a lot to me. But he was playing Guitar Hero 3, and I was playing Guitar Hero 3 on my PS2, and he booted his up, and I saw Bret Michaels as a character, and I went, how'd you get Bret Michaels? And he goes, oh, you have to do da-da-da-da-da-da. And I went, oh, okay. So I went home, and I did da-da-da-da-da-da. I didn't get Bret Michaels. And I saw him a couple days later. I went, hey, I did your thing. It didn't get me Bret Michaels. He goes, oh, it's only because it's on the PS3. And I went, what do you mean it's only on the PS3? He goes, yeah, because it's a newer game and it's a newer system, they could put more on the disc. So there's more on this version than you have on your PS2. That's a thing I have to care about now. He goes, yeah. He goes, it's going to be any of these new games that come out that are backwards on both consoles. You have to care because the newer version is going to have more stuff on it than the older one. Shit. Now I have to get a PS3. And I did. And like I said, I got GTA 4 and I loved it, but it wasn't my favorite. It wasn't till later on when the big games came out. And yes, GTA 4 was a big one, but it doesn't, I think a lot of people would say it's not the best. The Batmans, the Red Dead Redemptions, the Call of Duties is when it kicked in for me. I will admit I was a big Call of Duty fan. I missed Call of Duty 1, Modern Warfare, I should say. Modern Warfare 2, though, that was the first time since probably GTA Vice City that my buddy wanted to go to the midnight release. And I thought we were just picking up the game. But when I got there and there was a lineup, and I was like, what's this Call of Duty thing? And we popped it in when we got home and we went, oh, I get it. And I ran to the store the next day and I got Modern Warfare 2. And that's when I started working at Tim Hortons. And when I worked at Tim Hortons, I was working basically 3 p.m. to midnight. And when I got home, it was about 1 a.m., which meant I was usually up till 5 in the morning and sleeping till noon and doing that. So my buddy and his buddies, all of their significant others or themselves had the same shift. So we would spend night after night after night after night playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. And I loved it. We had a blast. We got into fights. We got into arguments, which I think happens with most multiplayer games, but we had a blast. That is until Black Ops came out. And it was that moment when I realized, oh, this stuff doesn't transfer. So all the stuff I did on the previous game means jack on this. And they do this yearly. Oh. And then I really started not caring as much for Call of Duty. And that's also when I started not caring about multiplayer as much. Because I realized all the time spent on these games was eating up my time playing other games. And also I knew in 1 year it would mean nothing. And I'd be back at zero. I remember going hardcore prestige on everything. And then it meant nothing. So my love of Call of Duty was short. I think I played up to Black Ops 2. And then I just kind of went, this isn't for me anymore. I'm missing out on too many good games. And what are those good games? My top 5 good games for PlayStation 3. Batman Arkham Asylum. I mean, how can you not put a Batman Arkham game on here? I personally like Arkham Asylum better than Arkham City. I got nothing against Arkham City. Arkham City is a great game. But I feel like the claustrophobic feeling of Arkham Asylum is a little better than the wide open space of Batman Arkham City. Again, not a bad game, but I personally like that claustrophobic feeling. I feel like it's a little more intense. I feel like he's got a little more risk to him. Yeah, Joker's the villain, but whatever. Overall, I like that one better. Number 2, Red Dead Redemption. Now, going back to the PlayStation 2, there was a game called Red Dead Revolver, which I don't think anybody really paid much attention to. But when I picked up a game called Gun, and I still have it, it was a Western game, and I loved it. I don't know why, because I'm not a big Western fan, but I loved it. It was fun. It was all about, training horses and getting into shootouts on horseback and robbing trains. And I was like, this is a blast. And then when Red Dead Redemption came out, I thought that was a sequel. And it was, but not to gun, to Red Dead Revolver. But yeah, Red Dead Redemption was an amazing game and such a great DLC too, with Undead Nightmare, with all the zombies running around. And the 4 horses of the apocalypse, being able to find those in the game was beautiful. Great choice. Another amazing game, Infamous. Infamous was the superhero game, the unlicensed superhero game that I wanted. The moral dilemma of Cole in that game, of either being, you could choose to be a hero, you could choose to be a villain. It changes the play style, it changes the interactions you have with characters. Such a good job, to the point that, let me spin the right way so you can see this, that, let me see if my fingers work, that long thing, there we go, that long thing there is the weapon from Infamous, because I want to cosplay that one day. I have everything for it. The problem is Cole's bald and I'm not, and I don't really have the talent to do a bald cap yet, but I would love to do Cole from Infamous because I think it's a dope game and it was such a fun time. Even Infamous 2 was just as good, but personally, I kind of like the first one a little bit better. The game that made me such a fan of the series, Borderlands 2. Borderlands is a game series that I've been a fan of since Borderlands 1, and I almost wasn't. My buddy Armin and I rented Borderlands 1 from Blockbuster when it came out, and we threw it in, and we went through the little tutorial section at the beginning, and we started walking through, into the main world, and we got obliterated in like 5 seconds. And we're like, okay, maybe we did something wrong. Again, obliterate. And we just got pissed. We're like, well, this is stupid. We're getting killed every 5 seconds. I don't understand how to do this. Brought it back, didn't care less. And then we went, well, we should rent it again and try it again. Because, the art style is really cool. It's a really fun game. Let's try it again. And we took our time, and we actually played it the way the game wanted. And once we got into it, we realized how great the series was. And then Borderlands 2 just took it to the next level. The humor behind that game is unbelievable. The villain, Handsome Jack, is one of my favorite villains. The humor that he has and the shots he throws at the main protagonist is incredible. The arc at the end with, spoilers, someone dying from the first game, and the way that characters react to it is heartbreaking. It is a 10 out of 10 game. Sadly, they've never been able to meet that love and care that they did for 2, but I still love the series, to the point that I'm playing Tiny Tina's DLC right now because it's still a good franchise, even though it will never hit number 2 status again. Lastly, for PS3, BioShock Infinite. I missed the first 2. I will fully admit I missed the first 2 BioShocks, but BioShock Infinite and being up in the clouds and the way that they designed the hook shot going across the city on the zip lines and stuff, that brought me in and I loved it, and it made me a fan of the 2 games before that. And now I wish there was another one. I know the studio's all broken up and we're probably not going to get another one. There's been talks about a show coming out. We'll see. I don't know how well it'll work, but BioShock Infinite is a game that I've played multiple times on every generation when it's remastered. My wife is a huge fan of it as well. So definitely those are my top 5. Arkham Asylum, Red Dead Redemption, Infamous, Borderlands 2, and BioShock Infinite. PS4. This is a fun one. So this was another friend who was getting rid of their console, and he wanted to get rid of it. I was looking for a PS4, so I purchased it off him. Came with a couple games. Came with Grand Theft Auto 5. Came with a couple other games that I wasn't really a fan of. But PS4 was a solid console. Nothing wrong with it. Nothing that I had any issues with. This is when I really got into the PlayStation Plus account and getting free games every month, which was a blessing. Had a little bit on the PS3, but mostly the PS4 was when I'm going to download every single game I can, because it was nice having a backup game every now and then if I ever need something, if I couldn't afford to get a new game. But what I could afford to do was get a couple consoles. Let me tell you guys the story of how I got a couple PS4s for dirt cheap. I was working at Lancaster, and it was near a Walmart, and I decided after work I was going to stop by the Walmart. So I stopped by the Walmart. I was walking through the electronics section, and I was looking at the systems, looking at the games, and I look at the PS4 regular model, and there's a tag underneath, and the tag says 114 bucks. And I went, what? So I look at it again, and I realize they have moved the shelf around, but not changed the tags. Now, at the time, or before that, I was working at Toys R Us. And Toys R Us policy, for those who don't know, is to a point, if we mislabel something and there's the wrong price on it, you will get it for that price. So I went, how do I do this properly where I don't give up what I'm trying to do? So I went, okay. I walked over to the associate and I said, do you have a manager? And he said, yeah. I said, can I talk to him? He said, sure. Am I in trouble? He said, nope. Just need to talk to him over the video games. He said, okay. Manager comes over and I said, what's your sticker policy? Like if something's tagged wrong, like what's your policy? He said, well, if it's tagged wrong, you get it for whatever the price is. And I went, really? He said, yep. And if the price is wrong, that's what we give it to you. I went, and he looked down and he saw a sticker. He went, oh. And I went, I just want one. So I'm not going to buy all of them. I know you can't do, but one. He said, sure. He goes, that was our mistake. I said, thank you. So I got a brand new PS4, which is probably 400, 500 bucks for 120 plus tax, like 140. And I had a start the car moment. And I was just calling everybody like, oh my God, this is so cool. It's so cool. And I already had a PlayStation. Or I already had a PS4. So it's not like I need it for myself. But I was like, I could sell this and make some money. Not 2 weeks later, I go down to the Center Mall in Hamilton. And I'm looking through the cabinet, just exploring. And I see a PlayStation Pro. And underneath it is a $120 sticker. And I went, are we going to do this twice? So I went, okay, worked the first time, let's try it again. Manager goes, yeah. I said, can I talk to him? Sure. Meets me over the cabinet. I said, hey, what's your sticker policy? Well, if it's priced wrong, we're going to give you the price. Went, oh, okay. Oh, we can't do that. I said, well, you said if it's priced wrong, well, I'm going to have to get the store manager. I said, get the store manager. I got nothing to do. I can wait. That's no problem. By the way, the PlayStation Pro is like $500-600. Store manager comes over. He's not happy. He got told what's happening. I said, hey, and he just gave me a look. And I went, he told me what the sticker policy was. I didn't assume, which means yell at the employee, not me. He goes, okay. He goes, you get one. And I said, that's all I want. That's all I want. So I walked out with a PlayStation Pro for 140 bucks. And I couldn't believe it. I'm sitting there. I have both in box on my bookshelf. And Kelsey's out at the time. And I said, you're going to love this when you come home. She comes in and she goes, you did it again. And I'm like, they mess up the tags. It's not my fault. Sorry. And I ended up selling both. I kept the PlayStation. I kept the Pro. And I sold my old PlayStation 4. And I sold the new PlayStation 4, and I was able to go to NXT and SummerSlam in Toronto for the money I made out of that. So thank you, PlayStation, for paying for my WWE tickets. I've gone back to both, actually, almost every store I ever go to, I check the tags. Not in a malicious way, but you know, like I said, I've worked retail. I know the people that work retail. They usually aren't big fans of their job and don't give a crap about the company. So if you tell them to switch stuff up, they usually just half-ass it. So if you're ever going to a store, read the tags. And if you see a giant price difference from what you think it should be, read the tags. Walmart now has a lot of electronic tags, so they're usually easily switched. But even now, I've seen some of them where they haven't changed them. I've tried again since then to go, and there's been some that have been, I wouldn't say they've been as easy, and I haven't gotten them. Those are the only two ones that I've been able to get. But there's been some where like tags have just been under, and I've been like, oh, they will be a fight to get it. And that's not worth the fight. It has to be obvious. There was one, I think it was an Xbox, and it was maybe half off. They had misprinted it, and it was at the Center Mall one. And I went back there, and I got reamed in front of customers for it. I couldn't believe it. The manager came, I know who you are. I knew what you're trying to do. You're putting in fake tags. And I'm like, it's behind glass. How did I put in fake tags? No, you're not getting anything. You've got your picture and just like in front of customers. And I'm like, you look terrible right now. But I just said, no problem. I'll go. Don't ever come back. And I'm like, yeah, give it 3 months and there'll be another manager here. So I'm not worried. But yeah, note for everybody, if you ever go to retail, look at the tags because they usually mess them up. But that was how I was able to get 2 PlayStation 4s for pretty much dirt cheap. But later on, after we got the PS Plus or the PS Pro, my wife wanted to try VR, and we ended up getting the PlayStation VR, and we still have it. And my opinion of it's not bad. It really depends on the game. I get a little motion sickness from it. I can only play it for probably about half hour, and then I really start to feel unwell. I feel really warm, and I start sweating like crazy, which sucks because there's a bunch of good games I really want to play. Blood something is a good one. Even the Iron Man one is good. What are some other good games? Trackmania is a fun one. They have a VR section on that one. But the VR is not bad. I know there's a PlayStation 5 version of it, and we probably won't get it. But yeah, it wasn't bad. It's a gimmick. I would say it's a very good gimmick. I don't think it's really worth the money. Let's jump into the top 5 games, and then we'll jump into the PS5. Top 5 games for the PS4. We've got God of War, the first God of War. I have to admit, I didn't like it when I first played it. I was a fan of the first bunch of God of Wars, but when that newer God of War, not Ragnarok, the one before that, I didn't like it. It was a different control scheme. It was a little more in depth. I didn't enjoy it as much. So I didn't end up playing it until the PS5, and we'll talk more about that when I get to the PS5. Spider-Man. Actually, you know what? Let me go back to God of War. I'm sad I didn't give it much of a chance because the story in God of War is such a good story. The design of the world is so good. It makes me want to play Ragnarok so much right now, but I'm going to wait until it drops in price. But it is a great game, and it deserves all the love that it got. I didn't think it did at the time, but now that I've actually played it, it deserves all of it. Spider-Man. Probably the best Marvel licensed game ever made. Easily. Miles, just as good, but I consider it kind of expanded DLC. The web swinging is amazing. The storyline is amazing. The twist at the end is amazing. Terrifying and sad, but amazing. The Stan Lee cameo is one of the best Stan Lee cameos ever. Such a good game. Horizon Zero Dawn, another incredible AAA game from PlayStation, from their studio. Go watch videos, play it. I don't know what else to say besides that game deserves every bit of praise it does. A new IP that just smashed it out of the park. That's all I can say. Like, you can make 1,000 games out of that, and I don't think you could ever get bored by it. The main character's incredible. The world's incredible. It's like nothing we've ever seen before, and it's It's a 10 out of 10. Uncharted 4. Talk about a sequel. If you look at any other title and you say number 4 is probably going to be the best of the series, that's a laughable statement when it comes to games. It's very hard to get to a 4th game and just be like, that just, it ended exactly how it should, and it was worth the time and effort going through 1, 2, and 3 to get to 4. But Uncharted 4 does it. Nathan Drake's story ends in that, and I think it's a perfect ending. I know they did another one. I can't remember what it's called, but it's got the females involved. Don't bring Nathan back. End it. 4, done, move on, because it was a perfect ending. And another one that I don't think anyone saw coming, but it was the smartest way to do this game, Rocket League. It is one of the only multiplayer games I will pick up. And to have a game that was so smart, and Fall Guys did the exact same thing, and it was the smartest way to do it, put that game out for free when it first comes out, because they know nobody's looking at Rocket League and going, I'm going to pay $20 for the game. But if you get that player base in for free and just have everybody go, this is an incredible game, and then put it on sale and put all the DLC on sale. Fallout guys did it too. Such a great marketing strategy, and it's a fun game. Like, if you went car soccer with rockets, like, what? It's like Twisted Metal, but it's soccer? Like, what are you talking? It's so fun. And it's one of the, like I said, it's one of the few multiplayer games that I will pick up, probably because there's no voice chat in it until you get to the score screen at the end. But yeah, really good game. Deserves a lot of the praise. So God of War, Spider-Man, Zero Dawn, Uncharted 4, Rocket League, an amazing console. One of the best ever made. I think it's one of the top selling consoles. I think every generation PlayStation knocks out of the park and makes another record. PlayStation 5. This is where my gaming fandom takes a dip. And not because it's a bad console. There's nothing wrong with the PlayStation 5. I've just hit that age where life has taken over a bit. And stuff like this has taken over. Cosplay has taken over. Life has taken over. So my appreciation for the PS5 is not what it could be, but I still enjoy the console. It took forever for me to get it. I think, like most people, when it came out during the pandemic, it was almost impossible to get. However, after waiting a few years, and I wasn't dying for it. My wife for so long was like, if you see it, buy it. Like, buy it. Don't think twice, because I know you're going to play it. But I didn't mind waiting, because I had so many PS4 games to play that I wasn't dying for games. When I did get it, I got it with, again, Horizon, which was amazing. But again, I wasn't dying for the console, and I'm not dying for it now. The one thing I do have to say, though, for the PS4 and the PS3, I had white controllers. The PS5 comes with a white controller. I don't know what it is with this controller for the PS5, but I don't remember my 3 and 4s being as dirty as this PS5 is. I'm pretty clean when it comes to my gaming, but for some reason, this thing collects dirt like no other. I know that in the thumb grips or in the hand grips, it's got the circle, square, X, and circle, triangle, square, and X deep inside the grooves. I don't think that's it. It's like all over the thing. It just seems to collect dirt, and it bugs me. But overall, it's a great console. It is probably the most digital console I've done. And it's weird because there's been digital console rumors forever. And PS5, you have a digital version, by the way. I own the disc version because I like the thought of physical media. I have DVDs. I still have my CDs. I have my cassettes still. But I feel like I'm buying more digital on this console. And it's not because I don't want, it's not because I want to. I just feel like the games that I'm buying on digital are either PS4 games that are dirt cheap, or the games that I'm going, do I really want the physical media later on? Like, would I love to have 10,000 games on cartridge on disc? Of course. But am I ever going to pick these up later? Probably not. Most of them probably not. So I seem to be buying more digital nowadays, and I'm wondering if it's going to continue that way. I do own physical, like I bought Tiny Tina's on physical. What else? I probably got 10 or 20 PlayStation 5 games that I have a physical disc for, but I just seem to have so many digital. And going with the digital, when I come to my top 5, I had some trouble picking my top 5. Not that I'm not playing it. I am playing my PS5, but I seem to be playing still PS4 games. So actually going through and finding PS5 games that I haven't referenced before. By the way, that's another thing. I'm trying to do top 5s that are not just sequel on every console. Like I didn't do GTA 3 for PS2, PS3, have GTA 6, or 4. I'm trying to do different for different, not have repeats of the same series. So trying to do it that way and trying to figure out what PS5 games have I actually played. So my top 5, Ratchet and Clank. That new Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart was amazing. I missed a lot of the Ratchet and Clanks growing up in the PS2, PS3 days. It just seemed, I don't want to say too mascotty, but it seemed too mascotty. Like I looked at it and it looked like a kid's game. And everyone told me how great it was, but I'm like, nah, I'm playing GTA, I'm playing Call of Duty. And I didn't appreciate them. And now when I play Rift Apart, I'm like, oh, I missed out on so many good games. So I have to go back and play those ones because I know how fun they probably are. But yeah, Rift Apart was such a blast. Stray. If you're a cat fan, play Stray. It's so fun to play as a cat and just do cat things and go on an adventure and see this weird futuristic world where, all these characters are robotic, and it's a really cool indie game that I think gets a lot of praise, deservingly so, because it's such an odd concept that works very, very well. TMNT Shredder's Revenge. If you told me they would successfully make a sequel to Turtles in Time, I wouldn't have believed you. That was like lightning in a bottle back in those days. Having an arcade 4-stick controller or 4-stick cabinet and having a great game. There's only 2, Simpsons and TMNT. Other than that, it's really hard to pull that off. But they did it right with Shredder's Revenge. It was such a fun nostalgia trip. It felt like playing the old games. And it has so many more things to go. You can get new players, you can get new characters. It's so fun. And it's fun to do local co-op, and it's fun to do online co-op. Alex's Stray was amazing. Stray was very amazing. I had so much fun with it. I didn't finish it, which kind of bums me out because it was free on PlayStation Plus and it's not anymore. But I really want to pick it up and finish it because I did have a blast doing it. Guardians of the Galaxy was also a fun game. That was a game that I wasn't sure about because this was one of the first games that they tried to do the local team up type game where you can bounce in between players and you can be Groot for a second, then you can be Star-Lord, then you can be Gamora, and then you can be Rocket. And I was like, I didn't feel like it's going to be like you're going to want to stick with one character. Like you're going to stick with, I like Star-Lord. I'm going to stick with Star-Lord. I'm not going to touch anybody else. But they made them all work well to the point where you want to jump because each one had its strengths. And you couldn't stay as just one character because you'd miss out on part of the game, but you'd probably wouldn't do as well in combat because you had crowd control with one, you had tank with another one. It was very well made and a great storyline. And I think I was also worried because Marvel's Avengers had a lot of people hate on the game because of A, the gameplay, but B, also because it wasn't the Marvel movie characters. It was a different version of them. And when I saw the Guardians game come out, I was like, oh, we're going to have that same problem because it's not Chris Pratt and it's not Vin Diesel. It's not Batista. But it worked. And they did a good job with it. It wasn't them, but they still knocked it out of the park with the casting. So Guardians of the Galaxy is definitely one I pick. In fact, I pick it so much that I wish the PS5 also had you could customize your background. There has to be a way to do it, but on the PS3 and the PS4, you can customize your background and put whatever photo you want. There's in Guardians, when you do a huddle, you have all 4 characters kind of sitting around your Star-Lord's point of view, and you see the other 4 around you. I've saved like 3 shots of them all crouched. I want to put that as my background because I think it's such a cool shot. But yeah, that is a top one for me. And last but not least, the best tech demo I've seen and love for the entire history of PlayStation, Astro's Playroom. I can't believe how much I liked Astro's Playroom. Is it a kid's game? 100%. But the love that it shows to every generation of PlayStation, to the point where all the collectibles are the accessories for each console and the consoles themselves. So you collect the console, you can collect the eye camera, you can collect the controller, you can collect the multi-tap pad for the PS1, you pick up the games, then you create wall art showing a collage of all the hits from all the games. Astro's Playworld on the PS5. It is completely a tech demo because it shows all the new features of the controller with the pressure-sensitive triggers and such. But it is such an homage to everything the PlayStation has done. And I got to admit, it was the first game I booted up. I had Horizon, but I wanted to play Astro because I heard how much it loved showed history of the console. And it was the first game I played, and I loved it hands down. So that is my number 5. So top 5, Ratchet & Clank, Stray, TMNT, Shredder's Revenge, Astro's Playroom, and Guardians. Folks, that's my love of the PlayStation. I love PlayStation. I will never get an Xbox. I got an Xbox once. I did. Fan Expo 2018, I think it was. EB Games had the systems on for $30. An Xbox 360 controller cords, $30. And I bought it. And I brought it home, I plugged it in, and I went, what am I doing? And I put it back in the box, and I brought it back, and I got rid of it. Because it's another console, and it's another profile, and it's another group of games that I just do not have time for. So from now on, I'm a PlayStation fan. And if you love PlayStation, great. If you're an Xbox fan, it's perfectly fine. I'm not someone who hates Xbox. Xbox has a lot of great games. I will fully admit the Halo theme and the Killer Instinct that you guys get, I am jealous as hell of them because I would love to play them. I'm just not paying for a console for 2 games. But yeah, I love PlayStation. I love Nintendo too. My cosplays tell me I love Nintendo because Luigi's my number 1, but PlayStation is still my favorite. So I hope you guys had a great time tonight. I had a great time talking about PlayStation. If you guys got any PlayStation memories, Alex in the chat saying he loved Horizon. I don't know anybody who didn't love Horizon. I don't think I met anybody who's like, that game was terrible. They're amazing. They're amazing games. Hope you guys had a good night. I'm going to let you guys get out of here. Enjoy the rest of your night, the last little bit of your long weekend. Next week, we will be back. I'm not 100% what next week's topic is going to be, but I will throw it up on social media probably on Saturday, because Friday I'm going to a comedy show, so I'm probably not going to be throwing it up then. Then the week after that, we're going to do a review of London Comic Con, because I'll be in that 2 weeks. And then 3 weeks from now, we're going to be doing the review of Hamilton Comic Con, which I am reviewing. And on October 2nd, mark it in your calendars, our first guest on the podcast. I'm at my first guest on October 2nd. Mark it in your calendars. I'm not going to tell you who it is yet. It's a good buddy of mine. We're going to talk about all that in the next coming weeks. But folks, have a great night. I will see you all throughout the week. Have a great week, and I'll see you next week here on Monday Night Nerd. Take care. Talk to you soon. Stay nerdy, folks. See you guys. Hey, thanks for watching Monday Night Nerd. If you enjoyed this content, please hit the subscribe button, like this content, and follow on social media for even more nerdy fun. See you soon.